Hola amores, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Michelle, returning subscribers, Caribbean Returner. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this super easy birthday cake that is beginner friendly. These are the ingredients and the measurements will be in the description. We're going to start by creaming our margarine and sugar. You can also use butter as well. You can use a hand mixer, a whisk, but today I'm choosing to use my Ruby. You can mix my Ruby. I'm going to add in the eggs in batches. The 5 eggs, I'm going to do 2 first to first allow them to incorporate, and then I'm going to do the rest after the first incorporation. I'm going to add in the rest of the eggs. Well, and then at this point we're going to add in our flour as well in batches. I forgot to mention that this cake is a vanilla cake, but you can make it into any flavor you want. I'm going to put the measurements in the description, and then you can play around with it. And also a hack that I learned. If you're going to make it, turn it into chocolate, and you're going to use cocoa powder, you are going to add in some. You're going to reduce the amount of flour you're using because you're using cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is a dry ingredient, so you reduce the amount of flour you're using. So at this point, I added milk, but the recipe itself does not require you to use milk. I just didn't like how thick it was. So I added milk to make it a little bit flowy like it is. But if you beat the cream and butter for a little longer than I did, you can get it to be we can also still use it for that consistency, and that consistency is good, especially if you're making cupcakes. I highly recommend it. We're going to bake it at 175 for 40 minutes. And once it has cooled, we're going to cut it into layers. I cut mine into 3 layers, but if you're a beginner, I highly recommend you doing 2 layers. It's going to be easier. These are the ingredients for the buttercream, and I was using American buttercream, which requires butter and icing sugar alone. But I also added a little bit of vanilla essence to it to go with the theme of the cake, the vanilla cake. Mine stayed the yellow because margarine doesn't really change completely. But you don't like that one. I'm gonna mix everything until it's combined, and I'm gonna add the vanilla essence. And before it's completely mixed, I'm gonna add the vanilla essence. This is how it's gonna look. We're gonna scrape the sides, make sure that all the icing sugar is incorporated. At this point, we're going to start layering the cake. I did not put any sugar syrup on mine because the layers were pretty moist. But if your cake is a little bit hard inside, you can use sugar syrup, and sugar syrup is 1 part water, 1 part sugar. Let it boil down, and you have your sugar syrup, which you can also flavor. You can add in any spices and fruit you want. Not any fruit. Don't use bananas or mangoes. You can use oranges and apples. So I'm going to layer it, making sure that the icing is even. Layered evenly. Don't mind my stained fingers, so that is the food color. After stacking the second layer, I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you a mistake I did. and how you can prevent that mistake. So we're going to layer on the icing. You're gonna ice it, not layer the icing. I'm gonna ice it first, then I'm gonna show you / tell you the mistake I did and how you can prevent it. Now here is the mistake. Mistake number 1 is me not trimming the top of the cake. As you can see, when I put it on top, you can see this huge gap between the layers, and I was trying to force it to lay flat, and you can see the cake had started cracking, meaning that if I had not fixed the mistake, the cake would have cracked. And also it would have meant me using more buttercream and it would not have turned out smooth. So what did I do? What I did was, after noticing the mistake, I decided, let me first ignore it and see if I can fix it. Now what I did is that off camera, I turned this top layer. I turned the top layer and trimmed the bump that you get when the cake is baked, and made it leveled in a way that it can sit well when put as the bottom. So the top became the bottom and the bottom became the top, as you're gonna see in the next clip. Now this point is when I turned it. It's not so clear, but you can see I turned, so the bottom became the top and the top became the bottom. I put some buttercream to hold it down so it doesn't move as much. At this point, I'm trying to make sure that all the corners are aligned. And a little thing, you can see there's a piece of cake missing that is easily fixable with the cream, with the icing. You just put a little bit extra on there and then ice it, and nobody knew that there was a crack. There was a piece of cake missing there. So once you're satisfied with how it looks, you're going to put a little bit of crumb coat. Crumb coat is where you lock in the crumbs of the cake, so the crumbs will not be seen on the final icing. I started with doing a little bit of crumb coat with the remaining buttercream. And crumb coating your cake is very important. That way you'll not have crumbs on the final layer of your cake. The final layer of your cake. Because it was not enough, I picked up the green icing, the icing that I had dyed green, and just started icing it. As I said, crumb coating is essential, but at this point I just did half crumb coat. One thing I can tell you is that this is very beginner friendly, because you're not going to use any piping bags or piping tips on this thing. It's just going to be icing, a little bit of chocolate drizzle, which you can use a spoon, and some sprinkles. That's how easy it is. At this point, I'm trying to make sure that it's coming out smoothly. I know icing can be intimidating for beginners because you want it to come out like the way they do it in bakeries, but give yourself grace. It's your first time or second time icing a cake, and it doesn't need to be perfect, especially if you're going to have it in the house. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just need to be, if you wanted to ice it, have fun. And after doing it for 4 5 cakes, you will have gotten used to icing and gotten used to even using the other tools that people use when they're icing their cakes. That's why I say that this cake is very beginner friendly, because you can make as many mistakes as you want while icing this cake. Once you're done, you're gonna chill it, and then once it's chilled, you're gonna use, like, I made this little pencil that I'll put in chocolate, melted white chocolate in it, and now I'm gonna create drippings. Another thing you can do is that when making drippings, you don't need to use this little pencil. This pencil is made out of parchment paper or baking paper, but you don't need. You can use a spoon. You can spoon over the mixture. I preferred it because I was going to write on top, so it was easier for me to use a pencil. After putting the chocolate drippings, I put on the number. It was a birthday cake, so I put on the number, and then finished it off with some sprinkles. And you can also add in some piping, but I wanted to make sure that this cake is very beginner friendly and can be made with as little effort as possible. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you on the next one.